I guess you can lead us wherever you will lead us as we learn how to use this.
Okay, well, let me start. I'm going to share my screen, and I'll start with this. Let me just say that when I went to First Pasadena, I did not realize what I was fully facing until I took a tour of the building with the outgoing pastor. And what I discovered there was a huge building of 110,000 square feet that the church could not fully afford. And the bottom line is, we had operating costs of 600 plus thousand a year. That's if nothing broke. That was unexpected. But that was for utilities, property and liability insurance, the mortgage, custodial and building maintenance, and planned capital expenses. But then sometimes, like I said, things broke. I remember when we had a huge chiller went down and it was $180,000 to replace that chiller. And we had to do it. And it was money we really didn't have. So anyway, I created the tool to try to figure out what different parts of the building and uses of the building cost. But before I even got there, what I discovered by wandering around that building is that we had 20 plus rooms that were used for storage or specialized purposes. We had 2 rooms that were dedicated to the history of the church. We had 2 rooms that were permanently set up for handbells. We had a library that took up 3 rooms, and the library was hardly ever used. The librarian who had set it all up was in a nursing home, and so anyway, it was there sitting there. We had 5 rooms that were filled with old furniture. We had a decorations room. Any of you ever had a decorations room at your church? We had a decorations room. We had room after room that had become permanent rooms for this group or that group, and they were set up in a certain way for that particular group. And that's the way they stayed. So it meant that if that group met once a week, that's what the room was set up for. And we also had a preschool in a space that was subsidized by the church budget. And in preschool situations, the church has to decide, is this a ministry of the church, and are we going to subsidize it, or are we going to share expenses? It's a tough conversation that lots of churches have, and I'm guessing that some of you have had that conversation as well and haven't quite figured out what to do about it. So the tool that I created will help your local church to figure out the total square footage you have, the amount of space that's used each week, the cost per square foot to operate the usual space, and then the cost to operate each room per hour that building is open. Now, in the tool, you're going to have to get some information to get started. One is you need a list of all the rooms in the building, the square footage of each room, the number of hours each week that the building is used. So do you want to calculate use this tool for 40 hours a week or 50 hours a week? What's the number that you're going to list as the open hours per week? And then an estimate of the percentage of the building that is used by hallways and restrooms. Most buildings that have all interior spaces typically use somewhere between 18 and 25% of their building for hallways and restrooms, which is it seems like a large number, but it takes a lot of space for hallways and restrooms. And then what's the total cost to operate the building in the previous year? And so the cost to operate the building, in my mind, includes utilities, all your utilities. Is the internet considered a part of your utilities? That's a question that some churches have. Property and casualty insurance, mortgage, if the building is paid for, or depreciation. And what I mean by that is, what is the cost to replace the building, and what is that cost per year? So if your building costs $2 million, then if your replacement cost for your building is $2 million, then 20 years, it's $100,000 a year just to plan for refurbing that building 20 years from now. So that's actually a cost. And what are the general maintenance expenses? What are the major expenses that are budgeted? Is there a new roof in the plan? Is there an HVAC replacement in the plan, et cetera? The thing that really bit us at First Pasadena was that we had so much deferred maintenance that we always were having something break that was a big expense. And then if you're wanting to lease space in your building, you're going to want to know two things. You're going to want to know what's the market rate for that space. In other words, what would if you were renting a commercial building that had a certain level of if it's an A-class building or a B-class building or C-class building or whatever, what is the market rate in that particular area? And one of the ways to get that is Houston Business Journal does publish every year in the Houston area the market rate of all commercial buildings across the actual rate of all commercial buildings across the greater Houston area, Harris County and the surrounding counties. And that's a good way to at least compare where your church is and what are the market rates for buildings in that particular area. Actual cost is what we're going to try to figure out today as well. And then we'll do questions at the end. But let me go to the tool itself and show you. So here, can everybody see the tool, the Excel sheet? Okay. So what I have done, Alma sent you the latest update on this. I've made some adjustments to it. And part of what I did is I colored in green all the places where you will enter data. What I would suggest is that you save the file that Alma sent you, and that you create a separate file with a different name to do the work that you need to do in your local church. So that because the formulas are all in here to calculate all these different things. So I'll just start on the front. This is the summary page, and the only things on the summary page that you're going to touch really are the names of your buildings or building and these numbers right down here. The things that are in green are the things that you can touch. I didn't lock the thing down because you may want to add something else. You may want to add a different formula. But if you fill out the green, all these other things will calculate. As an example, let's just change the number of utilities here. We'll change that to $75,000. And that changed the number here. It changed the cost per square foot per hour. It changed the cost per year to operate each of these areas in this building example. So let's go to like the education building space. So it's got lots of examples here, room example 1, et cetera, et cetera. All you need to fill out is the number of square. So let's just look at room example 1. So Reggie Clemens is coming in. So say this is an education building, and you've got a huge room of 740 square feet, and it's used for 1 hour on Monday, 1 hour on Wednesday, and 1 hour on Sunday, which means that this if 40 hours is the number of open hours that your building is going to be available, then that particular room is available for 29,600 hours per 29,600 hours, 600 square feet is available each week. It's used 2,220 square feet per week. So it's used 7.5% of the time that it's available. And the cost to operate that space is $187 per hour for that one particular room. all these calculations are a part of the chart. So all you have to do is you have to go in here and put in the room name, room 220, the square feet is 340 or whatever the number is. And and then the number of hours per week that room is used. Say it, you don't use it on Monday. Well, take that out. Only use it Wednesday night and Sunday. That's 2 hours a week. So all of these numbers change based upon what you put in the green spaces. Sanctuary buildings, same kind of thing. If your sanctuary, so you put in your sanctuary and you put whatever the size of your sanctuary is, say it's 3,500 square feet, and you put that in, and it tells you how much it costs to operate. Let me change that, add that into dollars. So it costs this particular church in this example $1,000 an hour to operate that sanctuary building based upon all of these calculations. And bottom line is, let me go back to the beginning. This particular building is, wait a second. This particular building is used 21% of the time, 21% of its available time. Now, that's primarily because the preschool building, which has a preschool in it, is used 69% of the available time. But if the preschool building were to change and say we took out all of these, say it was only a Mother's Day Out program, and it only met on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Let's take this out. Then you'll come back here and see that the percentage of time that's available, it's only then used 28% of the available time. And that changed the bottom line number of the building usage to 15% of the building is used per week. Anyway, all the formulas are in here. Again, all you have to do is change whatever's in the green for your particular church. The room, the square feet of each room, how many hours it's used on each particular day. Say it's, you just put the number of hours it's used, and it calculates all this information. It's important to take out, if you only have 3 rooms in a particular building, then you need to take out all the room numbers that are just put zeros in those spaces. Whatever. But again, it calculates all of that up to this summary chart. It's set up to do that. Now, I will say this, that whether you have a mortgage or depreciation, I would suggest that if you have a mortgage, you put that number in here. If the building is paid off, you put the depreciation in here. And again, the depreciation in this case, this is showing a mortgage of $85,000. But if you had a building that was say its replacement cost is $2.2 million divided by 20 years, that's $110,000 a year in depreciation. I think you've got to calculate those numbers so that you know what it's going to cost the church, to refurb that building at some point or whatever. So I've rushed through this pretty rapidly, but again, each of these tabs are different. So in this case, I've put 5 buildings on here: education building, sanctuary building, office building, preschool area, and fellowship hall. Each one of these tabs can also be renamed. So you can rename it. If you want to name it some other building, you can do so by just clicking on rename. But then you also need to go back and change at the top. So right now, the education building tab rolls up into this tab, all these numbers here. Sanctuary building rolls up to all these numbers here. The office building rose up to all these, preschool, et cetera, fellowship hall, et cetera. But the bottom line is, here's your totals. This building, as it currently is listed, is 21,000 square feet. It has 876,000 square feet available of space per week. It's used currently 522 hours per week in all those spaces, and it's a 16% usage of the building. But it still costs, even though it's only 16% being used, $276,000 a year to operate that particular building. So here's the question. When you lease out your building to an outside entity, you have to decide, are we doing this because we believe in this entity and we want to contribute to their organization or what they're doing? If so, then you would not charge them what it costs you to operate that space. But if you want to be fair to the church and be good stewards of your resources, you might want to charge them what it actually costs. And so, as an example, say they're using this particular room in this particular building. According to the chart, it's $107 an hour to operate that particular room in that particular building. Do you want to charge them that? Do you charge if the room is dedicated? In other words, the only usable purpose for that room is what the group that is renting the room wants to use it. If it's totally set up for that particular room, then essentially they are using it as exclusive space that is not available for any other purpose. And so even though they may only be there, say 5 hours a week, then it's really being used for 8 hours a day. And then would you charge them 8 hours a day times $107 an hour? That's a big question. What is the ministry purpose of the church? Is it to subsidize the groups that are using spaces? Is it to share costs? What is it? So anyway, this tool will help you do all that. Questions, conversation.
Will, I have two questions.
Sure.
The first question is, when you were talking about that slot on the homepage that you put in, either it says mortgage depreciation.
Mm-hmm.
If there's a mortgage, let's say, are you summing together the mortgage payment or the mortgage amount plus the depreciation amount if you're calculating that total?
That's
or are
a
you
good
putting
question.
one or the other?
Yeah. In this scenario, I did one or the other, but here's a question. Do we need to include the depreciation also in those calculations? So if the mortgage is $85,000, do we also add to that $110,000? So it's really, instead of putting $85,000, we put $195,000. I mean, that's certainly an option, because your buildings are going to depreciate. We've all seen a brand new building in 10 years look worn out.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
We hope.
if you do that, of course, that increases the cost, and it's also the cost to use the building. The hourly cost per square foot is 44 cents a square foot. Then if you put that cost in there.
Yeah.
My question was similar because we have 5 different buildings built at different times. But this is a site plan, basically, right? So that all the depreciation is put into one figure, all the maintenance is put into one figure.
Yeah,
You don't break out building by building the maintenance.
no, that's why some of you who are more adept at Excel might want to do something different.
Want to put
So,
that on the sheet with that particular building, how
yeah,
much air conditioner repair and that kind of thing. That's what
yeah,
what hit me, because in terms of what do you do to repair a building or retire a building or replace it, is a question that uh, we kind of have going on with an older section. Is it really costing us as much as we think it's costing us?
yeah,
You know, what should you try to replace it or not is kind of a question that sometimes we get into.
sure. Yeah. Yeah, this is not that sophisticated. It is pretty detailed, but it's not as sophisticated as you're asking about. Uh, you know,
It's a
that'd be
good
another
starting
layer
point for
of
that, though.
Excel.
I could see how we could add that in very
Yeah.
easily.
Yeah, you could. Yeah.
Hey, Will, I got a couple questions similar to the one that was just asked around utilities. Is there a
Mhm.
way to differentiate utility cost per square foot by building? In other words, if I've got a fairly new, well-insulated building with a modern chiller system versus a 50-year-old, poorly insulated building with an old, worn-out air conditioner, the utility
Yeah.
costs per square feet are going to be very different.
Right. Right.
But
This
that's
does not count. This does
okay.
not accommodate that. But again, there would be ways to tweak the formulas to figure
Yeah.
that out. Yeah.
Understood. That's what I thought. Also, is there a way to calculate one-off, like annual uses of certain spaces? Like, for example, a couple weeks each summer we have like VBS and some other things that use a sanctuary for a few hours a day, but it's
Right.
only 1 week a year. How do you figure
Well,
that into the usage?
one of the things you could do is know that it costs this much money to operate the sanctuary in this
Right.
scenario. So for those weeks, you could just calculate that, if you're using it 2 hours a day for 5 days in a week, it's going to cost you, what is that? Close to $10,000
Yeah. Okay.
for the use of that space during that time.
And the last question is, if we have more than like the file that was sent out has 5 buildings. If we have say we have a 6th building,
Mm-hmm.
is it a matter of just adding a tab and then copying another line on the first sheet?
Yep.
Okay.
And I can help you do that if that would be helpful.
I'm counting Reggie Kelping from where I think we have 5 buildings, or we call them 5 different buildings. So I think we're okay.
Yeah,
but
we do, Mike. And I kind of thought about the same thing from the standpoint of being able to just add another tab and then copying the spreadsheet over to do
Right.
that.
Yeah.
And then it should
Okay.
pick up all the formulas that way.
Got it. Okay. Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a tool I created for my use internally at First Pasadena, and I've tweaked over the years. And then I also used it with First Beaumont to help them think through some things. So, obviously every building's different, and you can, if you're good at Excel, you can make some adjustments that will help solve your problems. But for most people, if you fill in the green stuff, you can accomplish a lot.
Mhm.
Just a thought. I think that for those that are wanting to kind of calculate one building only, you could just limit your inputs to that one building, and it
Correct.
should be able to pop out so you would save one spreadsheet per building so that it isolates the costs.
Right.
And then to your best of abilities, trying to determine, how much the utilities are for that building and whatnot. So that way it isolates what you're kind of wanting to do. So that's a way to utilize this tool, which I think is a great tool for any church to be able to understand what the cost is. I think is huge, just to operate your building, your property.
Yeah, there are a lot of churches that I have encountered over the annual conference that don't realize how much certain uses of their building cost. And the place that happens the most, frankly, is in the preschool or the Mother's Day Out program. They don't realize how much it costs and how much they are subsidizing the operation of that particular program. And I think it's important to understand that so that you can make a decision. Is this a ministry of the church, and do we want to be intentional about subsidizing the cost of that operation? Or if it's in some cases, we have churches that have a program. Well, First Beaumont, the preschool that's there is operated by another entity, and they use this tool to try to figure out, are they really recouping all the costs that other entity is incurring in the use of their building. You have to decide, is our program a ministry of the church or what? And if so, how much do we want to support it through the church budget? Because this is really this is what the church budget is costing or incurring for the building. So, other questions, comments?
Well, hey, Will, I think you just made an excellent point. I think most of the time what we would probably find out is that we are subsidizing these additional programs. The question would be, how much is that subsidy are you willing to do?
Right.
From that standpoint. So it's not that we would charge 100% for whatever the usage is, but to be able to determine where we're at a point now where we might not even know, to at least say, well, at least we can make a decision on what we want to do with these additional
it's an informed
programs.
decision rather than just decision.
We actually did this several years ago, very rudimentarily, to try to come up with that number, to just try to determine how much we were actually going to charge in terms of funds flowing back to the church. And we still understood that we were still subsidizing, but we weren't subsidizing as much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, I also think that this is very helpful for churches when looking at renting space to other entities, whether it be schools or other kinds of programs. A lot of times we are looking at market rates and things like that, comparables in the area, but we don't understand our own costs and whether or not, let's say, what the market rate is really actually going to cover the cost of the church will be incurring. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it's more than the cost of the church. But this allows the church to be able to make a better informed decision on that rental space. Because just because they're going to be paying doesn't mean that it's going to be beneficial to the budget of the church or to the maintenance of the building and whatnot. At the same time, one of the things that I'm realizing as we are working with Boundary Commercial is that the churches are not great negotiators for their space. So though this gives the church the ability to make informed decisions, they're not real estate negotiators. So I think that understanding those pieces is important, especially as we're trying to support and empower the churches to be able to make these kinds of decisions.
Right. At First Pasadena, we had a program we negotiated with a private entity to provide foster care we provided space for children without placement in the foster care system. So we were authorized and licensed for 24 people to be cared for in our building. And we actually, part of what we did is we calculated what it cost us to operate that building, and we did the market rate. The cost was pretty close to the market rate. So we were recovering. We did charge them $110,000 a year for that space, and we recovered almost all of our. No, we covered all of our costs plus a little bit more with the market rate. It ended up closing down when, in that situation, one of the foster care kids threw a chair over a wall into the children's playground next to the facility. And that I had to deal with a lot of angry parents and angry child care director, et cetera. And within about 6 weeks, the facility was shut down because of all the flack that we received with that situation. So, making a decision to rent space is a tricky wicket in many different ways. So.
Hey, well, I've got a question for you because I know this has kind of been something that's talked about in regard to space utilization and certainly the income from it. Is there still a requirement? Because I figured out a way to get around it if anyone ever questions me about it. But isn't there a requirement that if you basically, as a nonprofit, are actually renting or actually charging someone to use your space and it is mortgaged, that you technically can't do that?
I'm not aware of that, but I thought you were going to ask a different question.
Okay.
I thought the question you were going to ask was whether there is unrelated business income to the church if they rent space to somebody, that they would then have to pay income tax for unrelated business income since it is not related to their mission. Now, if you were to open up a tire store in one corner of the building, and you received income from that probably would be unrelated business income. But most of the things that we are renting spaces for in our churches are aligned with the mission of the church. If it's a preschool, you're serving a need in the community. If it's at one of the churches I served, we had a homeless ministry that actually helped us with costs. And so we received $40,000 a year for that. That's a related, that's complementary to your ministry. So it's not unrelated business income. But that's not what I thought you were going to ask.
Okay.
I don't know the answer to your question, Reggie. There's probably a good CPA that some of us know that could answer that question, or somebody on the call knows.
Yeah, I kind of did a couple of things. I had a conversation with TMF a few years back about this, and because that's where we've got financing with TMF, but we're very much overly collateralized for the loan we have. So I just said, well, if anyone actually asks any questions about it, this is the portion of our property that I want you to say is financed, and this part's free and clear.
Right.
That we typically would use for stuff like this. And they said that was fine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm not a CPA, so I don't know the answer to your question.
Stephen, you can go ask your wife. I'm sure she knows the answer.
She could tell you about the medical insurance coverage and compliance for your buildings. I'm not sure about the the financing.
There could also be caveats in your mortgage as to whether or not the lender permits commercial tenants to be renting space that they technically own.
I do know in a couple of cases with some of our churches, there was language in the TMF loan paperwork that required some communication with TMF about stuff that you might be doing like this. And TMF was a letter of request was made to TMF. A request was made to TMF for a letter that says we authorize you to do such and such in a couple cases. So,
and it's typically been allowable from the TMF perspective, particularly if it's a nonprofit and, like you said, a like business concern or whatever, and you were making your payments on time.
Right.
They were typically okay.
Yeah, if it's going to create more expense for the church, then if it's not going to be helpful to the church, then they're not going to want to see you do that. So
Nope.
yeah. Now, if you
So
put the tire store in, or if it costs you more than you're bringing in, that's not a good decision.
Nope.
So everybody on here, this is something that we're recording to help support churches, as well as to actually go through this exercise and the value of this exercise. So as a buildings and location committee, but also as pastors and lay people in the church, I'd like to hear your thoughts on why this matters to both large and small congregations in our district. And I will start with, I guess, Reggie. I'm going to call you out because I think that this message, I think, is important as far as being able to be decision makers for your church.
Thank you, Cesar. I would say first and foremost, if all our churches in our district went through some type of process of trying to determine this, they would probably, first of all, find out how much about their church they did not know. And I think that's a great benefit to all of us to determine exactly how much does it cost us to do anything that we do or whatever. Now, for some of those, if you're already talking about a limited income stream anyway, it might not matter because the problem is more in terms of the amount of income you have just to do what you do. But it might be helpful to determine if there's some things you can trim or cut from doing to be able to get it to where it's more aligned with what your actual income stream is. So I think this is very beneficial. I think it's going to be a lot of work for all of us to go through this, because I can tell you, I cannot remember the last time we went through here to determine just the square footage of every single area of the building. However, Mike, John, and I have already been talking about that, how we're going to determine that so that we can do that. But I don't think this is anything. I think this is something that everybody should at least consider doing, if not doing.
Thank you. I'm going to go to Amy next. Amy, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, thank you a lot for sharing this. It's helpful to really be able to break down to the square foot of what it costs to do ministry specifically in the spaces we have. And so I think I could see people in church could be really useful to see, okay, if we want to have VBS in these buildings, we've typically had it, this is how much it costs. If we are willing to move VBS to this other part of our building, it would cost a lot less. And making it easier for changes to happen, I think kind of showing the baseline numbers could make that a lot easier. Really also just like in that same mindset, separating our ministry from the space in which it's held so that like church can happen anywhere. It doesn't have to happen in this exact space we have. And especially churches that are financially struggling, just to see how much it costs to run ministry in this space, whether that if there needs to be conversations about changing space or selling space or relocating or anything. I think it kind of helps separate what we do from where we are.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Mike, you're our lay person here right now. So
since we're recording this, I want to go on the record and say that I agree with everything that Reggie says. Most of the time. But no, I think the tool is useful and this process is useful for a couple of reasons. One is churches might be astounded at how little they utilize their facilities. Now, most people probably intuitively know that, but seeing the numbers on the paper might really surprise some folks about how much opportunity there might be for other utilization of the property, whether that's either to generate some other income stream or explore some other ministry that might be beneficial in their community. And the other thing is, I think it's important, especially whether it's a small church or a larger church, if you're really looking at how do we make the most of our ministry and think about the cost of doing business, if you will, or cost of doing ministry. I think we all have an annual budget and we know what we spend every month and every year, but how does that break down into your actual building costs? I think is what a lot of people have no idea. And I've been involved in leadership in our church for many years, and I don't know that I could really articulate, except that at a high level, what operating our buildings costs. So,
Mike, one of the things that when I was at First Pasadena, I insisted that we do is like, for instance, we had 5 rooms that were filled with furniture.
mm-hmm.
I insisted that we calculate in our costs that those 5 rooms cost us. We were using those 5 rooms 40 hours a week, essentially.
Right.
Because they weren't available for anything else. That's
correct.
what we were just paying that much money for storage is what we were paying.
Yep.
And is that a good use of that space that costs us this many dollars to be used 40 hours a week for storage?
Exactly. You get to quantify the opportunity cost, right, of not having that space available, and whether you then can utilize that for something else or not. You'll have to figure that out. But at least now you know what you're spending on it, right?
Right.
Okay.
Thank you, Mike. Paul.
Well, I was going to just echo in on that whole opportunity cost, because when I got here, there were 3 rooms that were storage. Now, this was coming out of the pandemic, and it's just stuff just collected. People dropped stuff off. And we actually had 2 40-foot dumpsters full of stuff hauled out of the church. And it took 2 years to get rid of everything and the remodel job helped us to declutter a lot of other stuff, because people just went, we coined the term clutter blind, and you don't realize how much junk you have until then. One of the things that I like about this is it's going to give us some cost to quantify what we contribute to the ministries that happen. And, I'm thinking about when we host Army, we get a report from Army that says how many hours were done and how much that would have cost to have people hired and what the labor costs and material costs and all that kind of stuff is. Now we'll be able to say the church contributed X number of dollars to that ministry of hosting Army. On the one side, it's a cost. On the other side, that's a huge benefit to that ministry that's not being accounted for anywhere when you think about what it costs to operate this facility. The other part of it, the more practical side, the less feel-good side, is it will help us determine some things about how we use our space, because right now the attitude is, well, we live in a high humidity area and the air conditioner's on anyway, so they can use it whenever they want to. And now it's going to be, well, maybe that's a good plan, maybe that's not a good plan. Actually, what it's costing to run these things. And I've already jotted down about 3 different tweaks to put in here. I'm in a church full of engineers and cost counters. So I think they'll have several little things to add into each spreadsheet within the whole. But yeah, I think it's going to be very valuable in planning, and helping people open their eyes to see what they actually have, what they're actually doing with the money, and then decide, hey, maybe we need to do something else with the money and leave the building alone. And we've got a wonderful facility and it's in better shape than most, but it still costs us a lot.
Great points. Thank you. Uh, Pat, you're next on my screen.
Well, I'm coming at it from two directions. I look at it from a revenue perspective, and I'm looking around my office right now, and it's a really big room, and I can't help but wonder how many kids we can open up another preschool room if I move out of here and increase the revenue to our preschool, which then funnels, of course, into our budget if we set it up that way. Um, and how that might cover some shortfalls that we see coming. So, I mean, I'm already thinking about the facility and optimizing the space for the revenue that we need. But what it all comes down to is stewardship. Is we have been charged to be the stewards of in many cases very limited things. I'm not the guy with the 5 talents right now. Um, but that doesn't matter, right? We're not supposed to stick it or our heads in the sand and do nothing. And so I just think that to be the best stewards we can be of whatever it is we've been given, this is a great tool for that. And if we can prove to the people, if we can show to our people that we are taking this seriously, being the best stewards we can, they're going to trust us even more with the donations that they give, the offerings that they give. And isn't that better to be trusted more by our people? So that's all I got to say.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Pat. I mean, transparency, trust, I think this is all part of it as well. That's a really good point. And it's also a shout out to all those churches that have unfinished parts of their building uh, that were left for later as well, which I had one as well. So I get that. Uh, Stephen, any thoughts, sir?
Well, I'm not sure how much more I can add than has already been said, but I was thinking along the same line as Pat. I mean, uh, it's a gift from God. And I've been told to take authority and to oversee and care for the gifts of God. And I got 43 rooms that are gifts from God that all have a value and a cost to maintain them. And this just helps. It's another tool to better assess how I'm supposed to see that gift and care for it and steward it. So I think it's everything that everyone said. But yeah, keeping it in the faith realm, I'm supposed to be the chief steward here at this church.
Thank you. And Will, you've talked a lot, but you hadn't really gone into this question. So, what would you say to large and small churches about this process?
This is flexible, but you can use it with a large church or a small church. Just have to put zeros in the places where you need zeros if you're a small church. If a room doesn't exist, don't put it in. But I think small churches have to be aware of what it costs to do things as well.
Awesome. Thank you very much. I am really encouraged because I think that the more that we can equip lay leadership and pastors in the realms that we are today, where we are worried about the mortgage payment, or we are thinking about extra rooms and wondering what do we do with these rooms, what can be done with these rooms. I think the more information that we have, the better. And so thank you very much, Will, for leading us in this process, teaching us how to use this tool. I want to encourage all of our pastors here, but also the ones who will be watching this to take this process seriously and really, to utilize it is you'll find a value in it, but to not do it on your own, but really include your laity in this process, I think makes it that much better. Because we can all find ourselves being a lone ranger, and we have some Excel sheet junkies in our midst that sometimes they just want to play around with it, but really include your laity, your lay leader, your trustees in this process will be very, very helpful. And then also to, part of report it to your church. Let the church know what you found through this process as well. That's all I have. Pat, you are our leader on this committee. What do you have? Do you have anything else that you'd like to say?
I just want to say thank you to Will for creating this. I know you've been at it for a while and you've chipped away at putting this together. And so it doesn't seem like it's a big thing, maybe because you've had it so long. But to have, to be able to share that with our folks is going to be a huge thing, I think. And so I'm definitely grateful. I look forward to sending it out to everybody, to all the churches, and seeing what the level of use is. I think that's going to be telling from a committee perspective. I think it's going to be telling who uses it and who doesn't. There's some insight to be had as far as that goes, and so I think it's important for that too, to find out who takes this seriously and who doesn't. So thank you everybody for making the time to make this recording, and Will, I'm sure that anybody that gets this and has questions can reach out to you.
Absolutely.
For help, since you're retiring, aren't you retiring? Is that what
Yes and no.
Yes.
Tomorrow is my last day as an appointed person in the conference, but there's nobody to take my place, so I'm going to hang around a while and still sit in the same chair and maybe sleep a little bit later from time to time and
There you
stuff
go.
like that.
Is there a contact avenue for you that folks can use
email
even though
me.
you're retired?
You can. I still have the same email address. I'm still sitting in the same chair until the conference finds somebody to take on the role that I have been involved in. I'm still sitting here.
All right. Just in case, say your email address out loud.
wreed@txcumc.org.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Cesar, anything else?
That's it, y'all. Let's. I know that everybody's busy, got stuff to do. Thank you for making the time. I will find somebody to edit this just to help it flow a little bit better. And then we will send this out. And I am thinking that we'll hopefully add it to also the church conference paperwork as well, just as a incentive, just as a added kind of tool to the churches. I do find a value in it. So that's all I have. Thank y'all so very much. And
I made some tweaks while we were talking, just tiny tweaks, but I can send out the latest version again. So
yeah, that would be great. That's all I have. Pat, why don't you pray us out so that we can make it official, I guess, as a church committee.
I'd be happy to. Let's pray. Father God, thank you again for this day. Thank you again for the way you gather people together for use and service in your church is truly amazing. I want to thank everybody that's on the call. I want to thank Will, especially for putting all this together. And I want to thank all of those who in leadership in the congregations that we're talking about that really are charged with being stewards of all that we've been entrusted with. And Lord, I just pray that we will use this tool to the best of our abilities so that we can make the biggest impact we can with what we've been given. We have to be better. And this is an opportunity for us to do that. And so thank you for your guidance. Thank you for the blessings that you've given to us. And I just ask for your continued leadership in your church as you build it. And thank you for letting us be a part of it. In all of this, in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.